You went and found one, didn't you? You couldn't leave it alone. You couldn't accept that 98.3% of songs were figure-outable from that other video I did. You had to go and find the missing one, didn't you? You've come up with some song that breaks the rules. Yeah, I see you. Web tunes with your Sweet Home Alabama. Sonny Jim. Yeah. Oh dear, sorry. So we're talking about what key a song might be in. We're talking about how to figure out what key a song is in, and the other video should have dealt with 99% of cases, and there's a few left over. So this is the video for those exceptions, for those songs that seem to defy the obvious ways of working out what key it's in. Remember, we did the home method where you just feel what chord feels like it's landed, what chord feels like home, where it's kind of come to settle, come to rest. And we also did the circle of fifths method, where you take all the notes that are in the song and you see if you can figure out where in the circle of fifths they fit. So the way I see it, you've got 4 possibilities.
Whoa, hold on. No, wait a minute. If you think we're going to have some sort of pseudo-intellectual conversation about what key it's in from a theoretical point of view, then you, Sunshine, are on the wrong channel. The only reason I want to know what key a song is in is so I can use that information for some sort of practical purpose, right? I can only think of 2 practical purposes to knowing what key a song is in. One, you might want to write it down somehow, either classical notation, which requires a key signature at the beginning next to the clef, or Nashville numbers, which relies on knowing what key you're in to interpret what the numbers mean. Or that you want to improvise or compose over the top of the chord sequence. Maybe it's an improvised guitar solo or a keyboard solo or a saxophone solo. Or maybe it's a chord sequence you've written and you want to know how to write the melody over the top of it. So what really matters about figuring out what key it's in is knowing what notes you are allowed to play over the top of the chord sequence. I don't care what theoretically the key is in. I care what notes you're allowed to play. And bear that in mind as we go through the rest of this video. Alright.
So the way I see it, you've got 4 possibilities. Possibility 1 is that the song contains some notes that aren't in the key. We call them blue notes, by the way. They're not actually that unusual. They appear particularly in blues, but also in jazz. They can pop up anywhere. They're one of the things that makes songs sound interesting and a little bit different, actually. So they're not a bad thing. But they can throw you if you're too tightly focused on just writing the notes down. You need to pull your focus back, look at the whole song, look at the context in which those notes are placed. So here's a good example. The chorus of the song Delilah by Tom Jones. Bruce Dickinson does a lovely cover of this song, by the way. And so do Oddball and the Shifty Twins, but more about them later. That note there is a flat 5. It's a G flat, or an F sharp if you want to call it that. Now this shouldn't present you with a problem, because all you do is notice that that flat 5, that G flat, it only appears in the chorus twice. It's what we call a passing note. We don't land on it, we sing it and then move on to another note that is in the key. And if you were to write down all of the notes in the song and make a note of how many times each note appeared, that flat 5 would be bottom of the list. Disregarding that one note, which only appears twice in the chorus, all the notes are in C. The chorus starts on C. C feels like home. It's in C. It's just got a flat 5 in it sometimes. So if you put it in context, the problem kind of goes away. Option 2 is that you're trying to analyse some kind of thrash metal record like Slayer's Raining Blood. Now that was a very slow rendition of the Spider Riff, as it's commonly known, which happens just before the verse of the song. You can see, hopefully at that incredibly slow speed, because I can't play it any faster, that it's what we call chromatic. It uses a lot of notes that are not in the scale, so many that if you wrote them all down, you wouldn't stand a chance of putting it in the circle of fifths. Now I've played in thrash metal bands, and actually in this sort of situation the home method usually works really, really well. Another riff in that song goes like this. Again, played pretty slowly due to my ineptitude on the guitar, but you get the idea. Now on the record, that bottom string is tuned to E flat, and there are so many E flats in that riff. Now Raining Blood does that a lot. It goes back to that open E flat loads in the song. So most people would say that the song is in E flat, but actually it's pretty useless information. Why are you wanting to know what key it's in the first place? Are you one of these people that just wants to have an academic argument about what key it's in? Are you? Because if you are, I don't know. The reality of it is, if you want to know what key it's in so that you can solo over it, well, if the riff underneath it's chromatic, the solo over the top can be chromatic. Music ultimately is about putting things together that you think sound good. So if there's no point following, I must play an E flat major at the moment, if you've got that underneath what you're soloing. It kind of seems a bit redundant, right? In other words, it's a bit of a moot point in some styles of music. No, you're still not happy, are you? Fine. Option 3 then. See if you like this one. Some songs have different keys for different sections. Here is Come On Eileen. This is the chord chart. If we follow the home method, then the verse feels like C.
C.
But the chorus feels like D.
Come on, I need what it means at this moment you need everything. D.
And the circle of fifths method backs both of these theories up. Look at the notes from the verse here and the chorus here, and you can see in the chorus there's an F sharp and a C sharp. Whereas in the verse, that was an F natural and a C natural. And in fact, when you're listening to the song, you can hear it when it moves from the verse to the chorus. It kind of goes up a gear. Have a listen to this. Now you've really asked for it now if you're still watching, because option 4 is modes. Ooh. Yeah, some people are really scared by modes. Don't be scared by modes. They're just scales. A song could be described as modal if the home chord is not the first chord in the key. Okay, so for example, you've got all the notes from C major, but C major doesn't feel like home. The songwriter has put the chords together in such a way that maybe D minor feels like home. Okay, let's run an example. I fancy this little firecracker, Devon Townsend's Deadhead. It's a wonderful song. You must play it to your mum at Christmas. So the usual context, you want to solo over the top of those chords. You want to write some riffs to go along with it, whatever. So you want to know what key it's in. Fine. The verse only consists of 2 chords. C minor and E flat major. Now the C minor happens first, so most people would probably err on the side of, hey, it's in the key of C minor. But if you did decide it was in E flat, it wouldn't really matter that much, because as you can see from the circle of fifths, those 2 keys are related anyway. They use all the same notes. So again, it's largely an academic point, a bit like the thrash metal example. Hopefully you'll move to the circle of fifths for confirmation, and you'll quickly realise that those 2 chords in the verse only have 4 notes between them. But the chorus comes to the rescue. It begins on an F major, an F and an A and a C. And the melody of the verse has a fairly obvious D in it. At this point, we do a quick idiot check to make sure that we've got one of each musical letter, and we've only got sharps or flats. We haven't got a mix of both, and we respell the accidentals if we have to, turning, say, a G sharp into an A flat. Have we got one of each letter? Yes, we have. Fine. So off the old circle we go, my friends, and oh, look at that, we appear to be in the key of B flat. How interesting. So now we've got a clash. We've got a song that feels like it's in C minor, but we're using the notes from the key of B flat. So we must be in a mode by definition. Okay. Now C is the second note in the B flat major scale. Okay. So because it's the second note and we're centering on that, we're in the second mode of B flat major. That's one way of saying it. Another way of saying it is to say we're in C Dorian. It's in Dorian because we're centering on the second note of the scale, and C is the note that we're centering on. So C Dorian. A quick tangent, two things, bear with me, it will be worth it. Firstly, C minor and C Dorian are almost identical scales. There's only one note difference, the A. In C minor it's an A flat, in C Dorian it's an A natural. So you could noodle away in either of those two keys, and in the verse either of them will fit because the chords in the verse don't have an A or an A flat. Neither of those notes are present, so either of those keys fit using the notes from the verse. The second thing that's cool and noteworthy is the fact that Devin doesn't play an A or an A flat in the entire verse. It doesn't appear in the melody, it doesn't appear in the chords. So as a listener, your Western ears are probably assuming that it's C minor. And when you get to the chorus, there's this big F chord. Now if you was in C minor, that would be an F minor, and it would sound like this. But it's at this moment he uses the A, and he uses an A natural instead of an A flat. So instead of that F minor at the beginning of the chorus, it's an F major, and it sounds like this. The difference is huge. That chorus is way more positive and uplifting because it starts on a major chord. Me old mucker Devin, he's a clever musical sausage. Right, that's dealt with that load of nonsense, isn't it, you bunch of ruffians? Put that in your pipe, off you toddle, and if you can find a song that defies all of those approaches, then I'll come round and... honestly, you lot, go on, find a song that defies that approach. Go on, and then write it in the comments so I can prove you wrong later.